Yeah, well, the big kitchen places, they'll take like a 5 by 10 sheet of MDF, it lies flat on a piece of wood. They have a computer that looks at the wood, they know all the pieces of wood that have to be cut out, and it just goes, and everything is identical, precise, perfect. They glue the pieces of wood together, and so what you have here is instead of being one piece of wood and another piece of wood, it's a piece of sawdust and glue, and sawdust and glue, and it's all put together. They paint it, and it looks wonderful, but it's different, that's all. You should have a real good look in the hardware, in some of the different stores. You'd be surprised at the quality of the work.
And I can tilt that forward and show everyone your enjoyment.
Yeah.
Also want me to grab it inside.
Okay.
So you see this tent?
Now, see, the other thing that, the other things that I do, it depends on where you're going to have the wood. As you saw there, nobody's going to see this side here. And so, if you see here, I've joined these pieces of wood here. I just use glue, and I just screw straight in. These, on the other hand, I use pocket holes. I find pocket holes. Chris came in and did a demo one time on pocket holes, and I was sold on it. And I use it all the time. It's a great system. And so whenever I can use the pocket holes, I'll use the pocket holes. Other times, I'll just use a straight drilling. Other times, like here, right here, you don't see anything here. And so what I've done here, I've used biscuit joints. That way you can join it together with biscuits and glue. And I've used an awful lot of cabinets with biscuits and glue. I've had no problem whatsoever. It's good quality joinery, and you'll have no problem. So if it's going to be visible to the eye, when you're sitting there and you're wondering what to do and you don't have a magazine, you look over. Well, that's when you want to make sure this part looks good. And so that's what you make sure you do that. These here, on the other hand, it doesn't matter. It's going to be hidden. So that's why if I can here, I'll do a pocket. If I can't, that's where we go there. You make sure that this piece of wood, these pieces of wood, this piece of wood and the bottom is exactly the same length. So when you're cutting all these pieces of wood here, you cut them all at the same time. What you need is the table saw. You need a sled for the table saw. You need a router. You need a chop saw. Those are things you need to make one of these things. It seems probably more difficult than it is, but it really is not that hard to do. Yeah.
The front edge of the plywood,
Yeah.
do you dress it, or do you use a veneer?
Well, this here,
Yeah,
this is just 3/4 inch plywood from Peacock.
yeah, no, but I mean on the front.
Oh, on the front here, okay.
Do you band it?
Yeah, a lot of times people will put that very iron-on veneer. I don't. I go to Peacock. I get a 1/4 inch strip of oak. I glue it right on the front. The reason I do that is because it's much more durable. A lot of times when you're putting stuff in and out of these cabinets, the edges are the things you're going to hit, and that's why I do that. It's just more strong, sturdy. It's real solid oak as opposed to veneer. That's the same as when you do one of the first things that goes with door hinges here. If you have door hinge type problems on a door, it's usually these pull out of the wood at home. You have like a 5/8 mill line, which is basically chipped wood with glue, and there's a plastic pitcher of wood that they stick on the side of it. It's called mill line. And quite often, if you have kids that are rough with doors and stuff, the very first thing is those little screws that can pull it out. That's why I like having this here with the plywood. I can put nice 3/4 inch screws in with the plate, and it doesn't go through, and it's solid as can be.
Indiana pulls it.
Yeah. That's why I like plywood. I do it my way. Yeah.
Do you have any difficulty drilling a hole there for the European hinges?
No. In the drawers?
Holes? Yeah.
No, what I do, I think it's a 35 millimeter a Forstner bit you have to use. I have it in my drill press. I have a stop put in there. I just simply go in, down, next door, in, down, because I may be doing maybe 20 doors at a time. It would do it all the way, then I turn around to the other side for the bottom end, I do the exact same end. These are about 4 inches down roughly. You want them 3 or you want them 4.5? Drill your roots. But I mean, it's so you have the rough amount. There is a regulation, not regular, there's a suggested guideline as to how wide the door is or how long the door is, as to how many hinges you should have on the door. But generally, most of the doors that I do, all you need is 2. I've done as much as 4. But they're not difficult. You know, there has to be an exact, I think it's ballpark 3/16 setback from the edge, and it's a 35 millimeter that goes in, and these hinges just pop right in and screw nice and tight, and they really work well.
For anyone's thinking of designing that, or making one, that's not almost identical to the bathroom I've got.
Huh?
I took the bottom 2 drawers and I made a laundry chute out of it.
Yeah?
Just flip it open, and it goes right down to the basement.
Yeah. Like you can do whatever you want. There's really nothing stopping you from, you know, that would probably end up in our kitchen, right? No, for me now, when I'm going to be doing the finishing on the work, on the wood here, I've gone primarily to water-based. And the reason I go water-based, it dries quicker and it's easy to clean up. If you go to the oil-based, I personally think oil-based maybe dries a bit harder, but at the end of the day, it takes so long to dry, which means you have to work a long time in between. The other thing, the longer drying time it has, the more dust can get into it. This stuff here, you put it on and it's finished. This here is a water-based stain I use, and this is the Varathane. This is about $85, $90 for this. It's worth it. I've used other stuff. Before I'm going to do this, I'm going to put it all together. I then get a damp cloth and I wipe it down, because as you know, the wood fibers will stick out just a bit. And so I put a damp cloth and then I sand it off when it dries. Then I put that stain on. It's a water-based stain. I put it on, and then I take the sander and I take off any of the rough. I give it the second just to make sure it's stained the way I like it. Then once it dries, I put on this stuff here. And there is, I personally believe, there is a difference in the different stuff that you buy. This is Deft. It is a quality polyurethane water-based, and what I found, it just doesn't seem to make the fibers stick up as much.
Where do you get the depth these days? I thought they were out of
Benjamin
Canada.
Moore.
Benjamin Moore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where do you get the cement?
I'm sorry?
Where do you get the stain?
It's the same place. You know where the Lloyd McQuaid is on Simcoe there? Yeah, he knows the paint guy. And so that's where I've got both this stuff from. I've been getting it there for a while.
Do you spray
No, I don't. I don't have any spraying equipment. All I have is a foam brush. That's a lot of foam brushing, that is. Yes, Dave?
Why do you do separate cabinets put together? Why not just do one big cabinet?
Try getting it through doors. That's it. That's pretty much. I have done a really long one time, and I thought it was nifty. Boy, that's hard getting through doors and everything else. So that's why they mainly make them this size. They're small. They're easy to put through.
Okay, thanks.
But couldn't you just build it right in?
Yeah, and you know what? That's how they used to do it years ago. Years ago, if you came to Oshawa, any of the old houses, most of the cabinet makers, they would build it in place. They would have a piece of wood they'd nail on the wall and this and that, and everything can fit into that. And they would last forever. That's the way I do it. Any other questions on this?
So you didn't answer mine.
What was it?
How are you joining the two together?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. I get a pan head screw, It's very similar to a pocket hole screw. And I clamped it, see how I had it clamped together? I clamp it together, and up inside here where nobody sees, I just screw in one side and the other side, so it's nice and tight.
Pretty drill.
No, because most of those have a self-drilling screw, and it goes straight through without no difficulty at all. And if you're going to be screwing down into this is your kick plate here, you're going to be screwing this up against the wall. Is at the back here, you're going to use this part here, the part at the bottom, to screw into the stub. So it's tight against the wall, but you also want to screw it down here as well. Some people just use glue. Other people will screw it down. If you're going to screw it down and have a hole in your bottom there, you can do a countersink, screw it in, and you get little plastic plugs that just fit in, and you don't even see it.
You can make your own,
Pardon?
you can make your own plug, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you can. The only problem is that once you do that, you got to sand, you got to cut it off, you got to sand it, you got to do everything. With little plastic plugs, you don't even see it.
Do you do this commercially, like you sell these, and if so, what would you have to charge for a unit
Well,
like that?
No, this is my son's. This here, okay, this cabinet and an identical cabinet that sits over here, plus this cabinet and the two cabinets up above, when it's all said and done, will cost me $600. And that includes all of the wood, that includes hinges, door handles, the whole thing. If you were to go get it from cabinet makers, I imagine it'd be at least 3 times as much or more. And it would be 5/8 melamine, and if you look, see how I have the top here? They would have this, but they have a little corner piece of wood here, a little corner piece of wood here and there. I like putting a good piece in so it's nice and solid. I don't know why I do it, and I don't know whether I'm going to do a top dance on it or whatever. But
I think you're right in every way. I've had to take $600 and $800 worth of cabinets back because they were made with MDF and particle board and junk. And they've had those little veneers on them,
Yeah.
and while I'm constructing them, the veneer is showing a wrinkle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why did I buy this?
Yeah.
And I've taken them back and taken the longer route, and it's just been much more satisfying than the whole thing.
Of all the cabinets I've made, and I've made a lot for my kids and my wife, I've not had any problems.
Those, the wood that you're putting the pocket holes into, is that the 3/4 inch plywood, or is that a separate,
It is whatever I find lying around.
like it could be a pine board?
Absolutely, yeah. Because what I do is, because what I've done, this here is, what I have here and here, and the ones at the top, that was 2 sheets of plywood, which is about 90-some odd bucks each. Whatever I use for all the drawers, great, whatever I have left over, I put aside, and that's what I use for using the top parts here, the tops here, or the backs. What I'll do here, nobody's going to see this because it's up underneath it behind the sink, but at the bottom, you can see I put the veneer tape down. It's an area where nobody's going to see. I just glue it on, and that's what I do there. But these are just odds and sods pieces of what I have. I cut it in. I usually have it about 3 inches or so each way, enough that it's going to be able to, when you put your countertop on, if it's going to be arborite, you can screw up into it, or if it's going to be a marble or granite, whatever, you can put the caulking on. It's going to sit in nice and tricky. So.
Wait, is that an oak veneer on the plywood?
Yes, it is. Yeah, this is oak. Like I say, I've done it with maple, every different types, and some are easier than others. Oak is sort of a rough and ready type of finish. Maple is okay. Some of the woods are better for absorbing, like I've done mahogany. Mahogany is a great wood to use. It stains up great. You don't have any of the differences in absorption of stain. Some of the woods like maple, when you put the stain on, you'll find everything nice and dark, but some plants are blotchy. I've done that in the past. Yeah, I wish I had a spray booth system where you mix, where you have your stain and your polyurethane, whatever, all mixed together, and you spray it on, and so you don't have to worry about the differences in colors and stuff. Cabinet makers, professionally, lacquer is usually their finish of choice because it's durable and it's fast, but you have to have special equipment to use it. I got my foam brush, I can't do it. So.
Can you touch on the face?
I'm sorry?
Can you just touch on how you made those face?
Well, the door fronts?
Doors, yeah, and in the front.
Okay, this is, that was a piece of 1x3 oak. I take a router and I cut a groove, and I cut a groove in there, I do grooves on the end, and I have an actual wooden spline I put in there. You can get a router bit that does everything all at once. I don't have it, so I just cut the grooves, I make the splines, I glue it all together, and it bobs you up and does a great job. I router, you can probably see here, I router all the edges around, all these pieces of wood, so it gives a bit of a relief. My wife likes it.
So it's solid wood.
It's, oh yeah, solid oak,
Solid wood.
solid oak, and this is just plywood in the center.
5%.
Yeah. I have done raised panels. Yeah, just plywood, 1/4-inch plywood, in the groove, just sits there. Yeah, you always make sure that it's a little bit smaller than you don't want it tight, simply because wood will expand. Like, wood does not expand this way, it expands sideways. And if you have this expanding on you here and it's tight, you can have this here splitting on you sometimes.
And you don't glue
I'm sorry?
it. You glue it or not?
Well, these have,
No,
these
no,
joints.
no,
No, this isn't glued.
It's not just that loose.
Yeah.
So when you put it all together, you put your plywood in the
That's
place
right.
that you, so you assemble the whole thing as you glue it.
That's right, yeah. And don't forget, your tape measure is so important when you're making these boxes. You always measure it corner to corner, because that tells you whether it's square or not. You have to be bang on, or maybe within a 1/16 of an inch. You can flex these cabinets a bit, but it's really important when you glue them all together that they're nice and square. Your doors should be square as well. You do have the ability to put it through the table saw with the afterwards you have to clean up something and reroute if it's really wacky. But the whole thing is that when you first do it, make sure it's square.